Welcome back to Simandhar Education. So today we have none other than Rakesh Singhania. So Sangeeta is not with me because she's not well. So I'll be introducing Rakesh today. So I have an opportunity to give a full background on a bio of Rakesh Singhania. So he is the Senior Vice President, is the CFO of Wells Fargo India, and his responsibilities span across India and Philippines. Apart from finance, Rakesh is also responsible for the legal and frontline risk. Rakesh has been with Wells for over 11 years and has been a major contributor to its growth over the last decade. Rakesh has over 30 years of experience in various aspects of corporate finance in FMCG and IT service industries. During the course of his career, Rakesh has led a number of mergers and acquisition activities. Prior to joining Wells, Rakesh was CFO of IT division of Cambridge Solutions Limited, where as part of the management team, he led many strategic initiatives. He worked with Polaris Software Lab Limited as Senior Vice President Finance, where he was responsible for strategic finance, business planning, and investor relations. Rakesh holds a commerce degree from Kolkata University and is a qualified chartered accountant. And that was a brief introduction about Rakesh Singhania. And extremely delighted and honored to have him today at Simandhar Education. It has taken me a month to get catch of Rakesh sir. So I think he's there now addressing all the people here. I hope you guys will have an exciting time with sir. Over to you, Rakesh sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much and for inviting me. And I'm humbled that on a Sunday morning we have quite a few people. For what I see, we have almost about 60 people, 60 plus people in the discussion. And I think the topic is, am I loud and clear? Are people able to hear me?
Yes,
Okay, good.
Shraddha. Okay,
Uh,
thank you.
and and so in general, and then the topic is about the new CFO or how the CFO will pan in the new world. Let me, when I talk about the CFO, I'll probably be more talking about the finance function as a role. Traditionally, finance function has been, considered historically from a controller, from an accountant perspective, managing the taxes, the books of accounts, etc., to a business partner and so on. I think we are a, at a situation where the businesses are getting disrupted so tremendously, either because of the pandemic or because of the business drivers, different business drivers, or because of the new technology or the new ways of doing business, that the finance professionals, specifically the CFOs, will have to shed their inhibitions and take a much larger role in the organizations. And to me, the finance leaders are the cusp of driving transformation in any organization. And they can actually look at a very, business very dispassionately, and and then arrive and try and figure out what's the best way forward. So not taking away the legacy work which we've been doing, which is primarily on the controllership role, which is extremely important, with the changes in the accounting standards, the changes in the rules and regulations and so on. That becomes a very, very critical role for us as well. And I think the other part is also from a compliance perspective, where with the change rules and regulations. And in India, I think we probably come out with 5 rules every day, and those rules are pretty much changes every second month. So therefore, to keep abreast of the rules and the regulations and to be 100% compliant and make sure that the corporate governance is at absolute top class quality, it's important that we take a pretty much a leadership role in that as well. And of course, apart from that, helping the businesses as a partner, helping them to drive the various business initiatives, etc., is extremely an important part as well. And before I talk to from what I think is the transformation journey of the finance professionals, I think the most important part for the CFOs would be to really to be managing be a great leader, first of all, to be able to be a great listener to their teams, managing their EQ very well, and of course, helping the teams to perform par excellence and leading them into that area were of paramount important, from that perspective. To me, what has happened and what has pandemic has also changed for us in some form, to the extent, is that the businesses are disrupted every day. And frankly, for me personally, I was never aware that a business could get, be shocked or will get a shock like a pandemic, where we would have to really change the way we work dramatically. I mean, it was, though I thought it was coming, but I was absolutely ill prepared for it. And therefore, uh, for all of us, the fact is that these are things here to stay. You have to manage and make your business, your function extremely resilient to such changes. I mean, frankly, when I was getting my accounts audited for March 2019, I was extremely apprehensive that with none of the teams being able to go to the offices, how would we ever do all those sort of things? How will we even get our auditors being able to complete their auditors without even visiting our office? But all of us, thanks to the teams and so on, we found a way out. We did it online. We worked on technology. We did a lot of things to make sure that it became a seamless affair. And such events are going to be, you absolutely be here, to stay. Therefore, you need to make sure that we understand, the technology in a big way. Finance professionals historically, and though it is changing a lot with the millennials, have been pretty shy of changes, shy of adapting to new technologies. But the new technologies are here to stay. And the sooner we adapt, the sooner we make our businesses, the functions more digital, and by using various technologies like automations or various dashboards, etc., the better it would be for us, and we will be more adaptable. We will be able to adapt to the various changes which happen across the organizations. you know and which leads to me as how are businesses getting disrupted. I mean, if you look at it, a whole lot of businesses were probably unaware that what would happen from, in the post-pandemic way, and the businesses were getting disrupted in the last 5 years. And if you really look at the e-commerce, or if you really look at the Airbnbs of the world or the fintech industry, they're changing the very nature of how we do business, right? Uh, in a more transparent manner, in a more reaching out to the customers in a real time basis. I think those are going to be important aspects. The younger generation wants everything, at the tip of their fingers, or actually literally on their phones. And therefore, how do we able to reach the customers and access them in a quick time is going to be the mantra of the businesses in the future. And therefore, how do we really make our businesses, to be able to achieve that objective is going to be the single most important factor in the future. And therefore, the finance professionals need to be extremely digital savvy, right? And even for us, for example, in my organization, we were during this time, we we did, some of the people at the junior levels, probably fresh chartered accountants or passing out after 2 years, they came up with ideas how to automate our processes. And that's going to be the key factor in the future. As as who knows what more pandemics, more such disruptions come in the future, we will need to make sure that our processes become more and more automated, and and therefore to be use those technologies, and therefore to be to understand how that automation will become important from our a quick decision making is going to be extremely important. And I was actually speaking to somebody some time back, and we were having a discussion on how an automation, what sort of automation do we really need to do? Uh, should we, what should be the priority, for automating? Should it really look at the broken down processes? Should we really figure out that we need to streamline our processes first and then automate it? But to me, the more the broken down processes, the more multiple systems we use, the more the opportunity we have from an automation perspective. And these are some thoughts I will just leave in all of your minds, that when you are looking at automation, which I think is going to become an important factor, and specifically from medium scale to large scale organizations, this will become, you will need to start thinking uh, about them in the future as well. Uh, One of the other aspects, which will become important in managing these disruptions is uh, that you know where do we create a balance between an opportunity and 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 the adversity, and while protecting from shocks for us, right? So the business will get opportunities in such pandemics. There would be huge disruption and adversities from them. And therefore, how, as finance professionals, do we help the businesses to protect ourselves from these shocks? And therefore, if I lead to this, where therefore your planning from a really a multiple perspective will become extremely important. You will have to start thinking and managing or planning for various scenarios which you probably have not heard of. I mean, traditional way of business planning would have been, I'm going to grow at 10%, 15%, 20%, or these would be the shocks which come from my input factor, inputs or the factor prices, etc. And this would be some of the stuff which will come from my sale prices, and therefore, how are you going to adjust the business plans? I think that sort of an attitude, that sort of a way of looking at it will help us. But I think things which have happened in the last 6 months is far beyond that. And therefore one will have to look into things from different scenarios. I mean, you've seen in such cases that how some of the businesses have just totally got destroyed because they were just not there, or the issues were so different that they're just not being able to cope up. And I mean, the issue is in the form of, say, in the hospitality industry, whether it's the food businesses, hotels, the travel industry, etc. And some of the bigger hotels have found, again, I was reading somewhere, have found an opportunity, or where probably they would have never even thought about till about a year ago, right? And that has helped them to keep afloat, keep businesses running, give employment to people, and that is extremely important. Because you'll have to manage your stakeholders, you will have to look after your stakeholders exceedingly well, and therefore, as finance professionals, you will have to support the businesses in managing those disruptions, and even help them in seeing opportunities and arrive at the right and optimum business model for them. The the other thing which will become extremely important is for the businesses is how do we uh, through the digital technologies, how do we take a much longer term view of the business? At the same time, in listed entities, the short term performance is extremely important. And therefore, through this, how do we make sure that our KPIs, key performance indicators, or matrices are in place, and we are constantly evaluating them, looking at them, pointing out the areas of opportunities for us in the future. And this could be done through various, the new technologies like, data analytics or even AI, etc. Because this is going to be the future. And and therefore it will become important for us to assist the businesses in that. By nature, we as a number crunchers are good in understanding data, are good in assimilating numbers, and therefore it becomes imperative for us to be able to to help the businesses understand this from a longer term perspective. One of the, as finance professionals, we have been pretty shy, or, and I know in some of the listed entities, CFOs go as investors, talk to the investors, etc. But I think we have to migrate from that investor and become a storyteller to the of the organization, to the various stakeholders, and and that is going to be extremely important for us, because how do we tell a story of our businesses? How do we tell our story as what we are doing in our businesses? How are we going to tell a story of telling our investors or the various other stakeholders that this is what we are doing from business perspective? This is how we are making the businesses resilient from future shocks. And and as a lot of, say, investors and stakeholders naturally reach out to CFOs for the various metrics and the various understanding of the businesses. And this will become extremely important in the future for the finance professionals and the CFOs to be extremely good in storytelling and managing the various stakeholders, uh, and helping them understand what's going on in the businesses. The the other part which I think is going to become extremely important, as we've seen, is how are we going to manage the cyber security. And as we become digital, as organizations become more and more digital, cyber securities, frauds, etc., will become more and more common across, and you are seeing them hitting us in a very, very, very significant manner across. And therefore, to be able to manage those risks, and even having a robust internal control system, will become extremely important to us. Let's not forget that in the end, the CFOs are responsible to ensure that there are adequate internal controls in the system, in the organizations. That is of extremely important, a task or a role of theirs. And therefore, making and having a robust internal control systems is extremely important, for the finance professionals. Uh, the other part which I think was going to become extremely important is how do finance leaders become change agents? And I said right at the beginning that they are finance leaders will have to lead transformation in the organization. And for them, change agents is extremely important. They will have to act like leaders, They will have to be extremely motivational to the teams and to the rest of the organization. They have to inspire uh, the rest of the organization and have to really lead by example. Walk the talk is going to be extremely important for finance professionals. It's still extremely important, but in an organization where lots of changes could occur, we will have to continue to motivate and inspire the rest of the organization in a very, very big way. The other areas where I think would be extremely important is how do we really add value to the businesses, and therefore to take a strategic leadership from a business's perspective and helping the various businesses going small. I spoke about it in various ways, but I think this is going to be of an absolutely important juncture where uh, you know rather it is at a very important juncture where the finance leadership will have to help the businesses and take a lead in the strategic leadership uh, of the organization, of the businesses, and help the businesses uh, you know uh, look at various new business models, uh, how to uh, think through the numbers, think through the various ways of reaching out to the customers, and so on. Uh, the other part is really uh, from the it's more from a talent leadership perspective. Uh, you know, I think one of the important aspects is how do we drive a talent agenda? In the end, all CFOs are as good as their teams are. Therefore, driving a talent agenda in the organization and in the functional and within their function is an extremely important aspect. Uh, if I really look at it, uh, you know, people who are probably at my age are probably dealing with people of different ages in the teams or in the organization. The millennials work in a very different way. Their way of thinking, their way of work style is extremely different, and therefore people who are of a slightly older age or of a different generation will have to figure out how to deal with these millennials. They are come with huge amount of energy, and therefore to be able to navigate or you know make sure that the energies go in the right direction is an extremely important. Upskilling all the entire team to the new technologies and the new way of working is another important aspect. For the from a business from a talent agent perspective. The most important aspect for the CFOs would be to see that their teams encourage really high performance in the teams, encourage people to look at various ways of doing work, improve processes. It doesn't make a difference if the teams make errors, etc., because that's part of life. But to be able to navigate their energies through improvement in the processes, or to look at and encourage new ways of doing work is going to be extremely important. And that's how we would be able to retain people, because as opportunities come by, retention of talent is going to be extremely important. I mean, yes, you would lose people, which is fine. People do go for better opportunities in whichever way, but but it's important that we get a pipeline of leadership across levels, and therefore to plan a succession plan at each level is going to be extremely important for the CFOs in the future. Uh, People who understand business, people who understand the technology, people who understand, who are able to deal with people very well, people who are able to build relationships across the organization. And these are the sort of the people whom we would require in the organizations, because that is going to make your team, the finance team, a high performing team, and that will lead to to attaining the objectives and aims of the businesses. So, that, to me, that is the most primary agenda of a CFO, is to be able to manage the team, lead the talent, and making sure that a succession or a leadership pipeline is evolved in the organization. The the other part which I think is also extremely important for the finance professionals of the future is, how do you interact with not only your peers, but peers across outside the organization, in the industry forum, etc. Uh, I think that is going to be, as the ways of doing businesses is changing, are able to learn from peers through a different organizations, to be able to network, to be able to read, different sort of, happenings across the world, not only in our area, but across different areas of a business or leadership, or even in technology to some extent, will become extremely important for us to be able to continuously add value to the businesses. Uh, and of course, taking away, not taking away the most important aspect of a finance of a CFO professional would be really managing the cash flows and the working capital of the business. This is an extremely important aspect, and the pandemic has really taught us that to be able to have a robust cash flow, or even at a cash in your hand, is extremely important. So go back to the old adage and say cash is king is going to be paramount for all the businesses. And therefore, managing your working capital, managing your receivables is going to be an extremely important aspect in your business. And there were all these technologies and all this new way of working is going to help you to be able to achieve that significantly. Uh, the other part which I wanted to talk to you about uh, is really from the speed of change which is happening across the world is also going to force us to be extremely quick in decision making. No longer we have the luxury of waiting for days and months to ponder over certain decisions. Okay. You know, how do we take quick decisions? How do we manage the decision making and our ability to think in this rapidly changing business environment is of extremely importance to us. Will be important to the finance professionals. Uh, and as the changes happen, the ability to you know help the businesses in arriving at quick decision making with our insight, with our foresight, or with our business insights is going to become extremely important. And 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 as I see, and as I see over a period of time, I think in the first month of the pandemic, the businesses, um, some businesses, of course, were very quick, but some businesses were probably a bit slow in reacting to the changed environment, or even for planning for the future. But as we realize that the lockdowns and the pandemic is here to stay, I think the businesses became a bit more resilient, started acting more quickly, and the very fact that the Indian economy has recovered to a larger extent is based on those quick decision making. So I think the ability for us to think on our feet, the ability to help the businesses with those thoughts is going to be of extremely important trait which we will have to adapt to in the future. You know, the and switch topics and going back to the pandemic. Uh, one of the aspects which has which personally I feel has taught me over this pandemic is how do I how do I be more sympathetic? How do I be more grateful to people? And therefore, what it has taught me is to be extremely humble, and to the rest of the to my teams, and and even to some of the my peers and so on, or even if I go and see outside the what's happening into the to the rest of the business world. Therefore, humility among the finance professionals is what is going to take them to the future. Humility makes great leaders. And therefore, we as finance professionals should never forget that humility is something which is bred in us, which we have been taught professionally, and therefore we should to continue to be humble and practice humility across the organization. These are black swan events which have impacted us. There probably would be more black swan events which will come in the future. Nobody knows. But that has, in my view, given a great opportunity for finance professionals to to be to be extremely proactive, to keep learning, and and understand technology in a big way, because what is going to really drive in or differentiate in the future between organizations and between professionals is professionals who understand technology, are able to use technology uh, to their greatest good, to the benefit of their function and to the benefit of the business, from the others who have not been able to, exploit technology. So be brave, be ready to exploit technology, because that is what is going to, what is going to be the future. So I'm going to stop here. I think I've spoken enough, and would be happy to take questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Rakesh. That was an amazing 32 minutes of talk. I have also noted down the points of being tech savvy, storytelling, AI, data analytics being the key, cybersecurity learning, managing the talent, having a good succession plan, and managing the cash flows. These are, to summarize, Rakesh talks in last 33 minutes. And guys, now over to you for the questions. If you have any, please raise your hands. Apart from that, you can put up in the Q&A window where I'm just taking up the questions now. So glad if you could just raise your hands as well so that you can talk to Rakesh. Yes, Rakesh. The first question is from Ravi Hegde. How the finance team should gear up to this new change and the future success, which is very difficult now.
Well, as I said, I think the finance professionals will have to start, understanding the technology, have to start understanding the businesses, much better. They'll have to start working, be a partner to the businesses. I think the important aspect for them is to be able to use, take certain initiatives and being able to reach out to the businesses. Uh, and also, I think it's important that the teams work in a very collaborative manner, uh, not only with their own peers, but across various functions. So the collaboration across various functions is going to be becoming extremely important. And never be shy from really making a first attempt, because if you don't, and don't get too worried about making errors, right? Because if you're not going to take the first step forward, you're not never going to learn, and you will never be able to make an error. From an error only, you will learn how to do things better. I think that is going to be extremely important.
In the introduction, it was mentioned you were in IT and moved to core finance. Was there any aversion or what challenges you had to face and how you overcome it?
No, no. So I'm not an IT person. I think the description was that I was leading the finance of the technology division. Uh, but in the past, in my earlier organizations, I have actually implemented ERPs long time back. And I always worked in, and I always believed that uh, you need to exploit technology to the hilt to be able to get the best out of the technology or out of the various systems. There are various ways of taking out the reports, and I remember when we were implementing in ERP, uh, you know my, the thought which we had at that point of time was literally, I mean, this was early. This was very early times. This is about early 2000s, 2003, 2004. Is how do we really start from the scratch and reach in the end? And therefore, how are we good? How can we capture various data points in the system so that I can be able to use, use the technology to get various reports or to be able to do my reporting, etc. So I think it's extremely important, therefore, to understand technology, understanding the applications, understanding what that system can do, and then be able to figure out how this can, help us in the various analysis and so on, what we are looking for. Until you understand your own business requirements, and you also understand technology, it will be very difficult to match the two. And therefore it will become extremely important that having first is to understand the technology, but to be able to articulate your requirements even to the people, to the technology folks, will become extremely important. I hope that answers your question. So,
What are the 5 steps for becoming a CFO?
oof, I wish I knew. uh, I don't know about 5 steps or 6 steps or 7 steps, but one is, I think, extremely important is to be able to, uh, you know, go around the businesses, to even to understand each and every aspect of finance and controllership is also extremely important. But I think beyond that is to, I think to continuously work with the businesses, understand their requirements, understand their pain points, uh, and try and always be more and more collaborative. I think these are some of the important aspects, which will help you to succeed in the future. Uh, and of course, um, hard work has no substitute at all. So continue to work hard, continue to understand new things which is happening across uh, across the world in terms of finance, either in the finance area or in any other area which of interest to you, as going to become extremely important.
Please tell something more on data analytics for CA professionals, how it can help.
The entire you know the core of finance is really data, right? uh, and therefore, uh, we are turning out bytes and bytes of data in any organization. Now, whether if you're from whether it's a production data, whether it's a marketing data, or whether it's the finance data or any other data, right? Or even in HR data, for example, HR is also coming out with huge amount of data about its people, what people what people enjoy, what people don't enjoy, etc., etc. The question is, how do we put all these things together, right? So, for example, what is what is the customer behavior like? The marketing guys will be definitely looking at it. What is the customer behavior? What are they looking uh, uh, for? What are they buying? Which area is selling what, selling the most, etc., etc. Right? Now, putting all this data together, it's impossible to do it through Excel sheets or whatever. Therefore, to be able to use the tools and to put them all together and then see how it is going to help the businesses is going to be extremely important. So, for example, if you have a product selling at a certain location, you're saying, "Oh, this is a great market for that particular product." What is really the cost of producing that data, that product? How are we going to make sure what sort of marketing inputs needs to go and to make sure that the product is it reaches out to the customer uh, better or in a much a quicker way. Now all this put together will help us to improve the revenue of the businesses, and they ultimately to be able to manage the customer expectations. I think those are extremely important, and that's how the data is being really mined across organizations at this point of time. And I think more and more will come in. I really don't know where the technology will go. I don't have the vision of that, but all I see is that integration of this data, of all these data, will become crisper and crisper in the future.
How can we know what are the requirements of business to make grow? With example.
How to make well? So let me give you a different example, and something which I was reading about is and this is in a discussion with the CFO of the Taj Hotels groups, right? Uh, in the pandemic, as you know, the hotels were literally shut at all places, right? There was absolutely zero revenue other than those who were staying in the organization, and therefore uh, they found out that there are a whole lot of people, as the unlock happened, that there are a whole lot of people who are looking for, say, fine dining, uh, because they've got, they are connoisseurs of fine dining, but they can't go to the five-star hotels or even three-star hotels or whatever it is because of the scare or whatever it may be. And and Taj Group itself then came out with an absolutely a new product, which is I think called Cumin or something like that, which only caters to the takeaway food. And they have specifically curated a lot of a different menu for this takeaway food, and this has become a runaway success for them. So this is an example of how, and I'm just twisting your question in a slightly different manner, that how that an opportunity occurred in adversity, and therefore how the businesses how the businesses were able to grow. And from what I heard from this CFO is that the finance organization played a very, very significant role in in you know in 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 helping this product develop and be a runaway success.
So that is an amazing example. Thank you so much. I have just given the link also to the participants. So Taj Hotel launches Cumin. So Cumin is an online food delivery platform which Rakesh is talking about. Straight away, I've shared the link also. So you can go ahead after the session and do a study on that. So next question is, what are the main factors to be considered while preparing or having a succession plan with regards to business growth?
I think, of course, first of all, is you'll have to pick up, you'll have to pick up the talent, the best talents in your team, and figure out that what is the potential of each candidate and where we think this candidate can, go in the future. And then it's to be able to give opportunities to that particular individual in various areas of the business, to give visibility to that particular candidate or to that particular individual, and then to be able to plan accordingly. Now, Does it happen overnight? No, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and years to do a succession planning. And successful organizations plan for successors at each and every level, and not one individual, but two or three individuals, so that over a period of time, their talent pool or the talent pipeline never diminishes. And that is important because you can't really bank on one particular successor because who knows what will happen to that particular person, right? So therefore, to be able to building a talent pipeline over a period of time is extremely important. And as things progresses, you will probably keep adding more people in that pipeline. Some who who falter away, you'll have to see how the right training can be given, how we can provide the right opportunities for them to grow, to improve their performance, etc. And of course, you know providing them mentors across the organization is a great way of helping these candidates achieve, uh, to be a good, be a successor candidate. The more the people they talk to, the more somebody, and they reach out to one individual person who helps that individual in a very, in a dispassionate manner, helps that individual to drive excellence. I think those are the ways where we should be able to, uh, you know, be successful in a succession planning.
Kaneri Naresh has a question. Which course is better, CFA or CPA? I know Wells hires CFA, CPA, CA. And the question is up to you, Rakesh, now. So, who would you prefer when you're hiring? Is it a CA? Is it a CPA? Is it a CFA? Or is qualification is just an normal thing for you and you
I
look?
will I will hire a person with the right attitude. It doesn't make a difference which qualification that person comes from. I mean, as long as the person has the right attitude, has the ability to, you know, take risks and the ability to, grow, work hard, I will bet on that individual. I really would not, I wouldn't care about which qualification.
Guys, I think this is one of the best answer because every now and then you keep asking me the CFA, CPA, CA. I think yesterday Ashwath was also telling that, and today Rakesh have just summarized that answer for you. That is just what is important is the skills and the hard work and the attitude, which is very important, which you will have to show in that 10 to 15 minutes of interview what the company takes up. Thank you so much. I think
Frankly, Sipal, the day I finished my CA, I said I had enough. I can't study anymore. So I was pretty much done with my studies. But all I did was, to be very fair, I never shied away from hard work. There are times when I have worked continuously for 36 hours or so. So I have never really worried about hard work per se.
one interesting question is because you have spoken about attitude, how do you evaluate attitude on day one of the interview? All people are hardworking on a resume.
That's a tough one. Uh, but I mean, if you keep asking questions, how things have done, what that individual has done, you will be able to understand that attitude. Do I get it on day one? I don't think so. It's taken me quite a few years to be able to understand what are the best candidates or what I look for. But and of course, hiring, well, it's hiring a talent. I won't say a gamble, but it's of course, it's always luck. Sometimes you look for the right candidate. You people may have the right attitude, but sometimes don't get along very well in the organization. So you'll have to just work through that as well. So
One question comes up is because CMAs are typically working in the financial planning and analysis, do they have more chances of going to CFO than a chartered or a CPA?
I I don't think so. I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, if you're part of the business planning or you're part of a business partner, you're supporting the business, you definitely become closer to the businesses. But as as a CFO, you know, as I said, CFOs will have to, my one of the most important things I told you about the talent agenda for the CFOs, right? And therefore, in the talent agenda, I don't think it makes a difference whether it's the controllers there or people who are doing accounting work or people who are doing business plans, etc., etc. Uh, a success, a good finance professional should be able to move from the controllership role to the business finance role very well, and even vice versa, equally well. So I don't think that is going to be it's a huge challenge.
What makes a CFO unique?
Well, every human being is unique, super. So, uh, so to me, I think the greatest advantage the CFOs have is their ability to understand the businesses, right? Um, uh, to me, the analysis of the numbers or the businesses helps. I probably can. I understand if I have the ability or if I have the patience to go deeper down into the businesses. I think I will be able to at least understand the drivers of the businesses much quicker, right? And that's, I think, a unique part of finance professions. I may not understand how to do coding in an IT business. I may not understand how really a manufacturing is done, etc., right? But at least I will be able to understand that what drives those businesses. What are the business drivers per se? And it is ultimately the business drivers which we need to manage or we need to figure out from a KPI perspective, right? And as long as those metrics we manage, I think that, and we are able to understand, I think the finance professionals become that much more unique.
So, how to move across functions with an organization if the prior experience is on majorly business finance or controllership?
So there are a lot of organizations who give you opportunities to to do things differently, right? So, uh, say for example, if you're a finance professional, why wouldn't you, after 5 years or 6 years or 7 years of work, why wouldn't you take an opportunity in say HR, right? Why? To us, a talent progression is not necessarily vertically. We also need to think in terms of moving laterally as well, right? Into different areas, different functions. And therefore, to be able to learn new skills is what is important. As long as you have the ability to understand and learn new skills, I think working across function is not a very important or difficult job.
So, Madhur is asking, I have seen.
Of course, you as I said, you would need organization. Hello,
I think we lost you.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, Rakesh, now it's better.
Oh, okay, tell me. Go ahead.
Uh, what are the key factors to be taken care of in the initial stages of startups pertaining to any industry? I think there is some disturbance at Rakesh's side. Just a second, guys. Attendees, are you able to hear him? Hello? No. Okay. Just give us a second. I think there is some connection issues there. Guys, Rakesh is joining back again. Just give us a second.
Hello, can you hear
Yeah,
me?
Rakesh. Yeah, Rakesh, I think we lost you.
Okay,
Participants,
sorry
are you
about
able
that.
to hear him properly now? Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, you'll have to repeat your question. Sorry, I missed
Yeah.
your question.
Yeah. So can finance professionals move into a strategic roles as well? What is required for that? How should a person work on that?
As I said, as you know, the finance professionals, in fact, and in a lot of organizations, finance professionals do move to strategic roles itself. Uh, to be able to move to that role, as I said, is you need to start, thinking more from a business perspective, right? Uh, your finance background helps you to understand a businesses much better, but from a thinking perspective, start thinking in terms of the how what are the various aspects of the businesses, how businesses can be, are being driven, all the business drivers, etc. I think those are the aspects which help us to understand the strategic part, uh, uh, and literally to be able to reach out to the various businesses, understanding what's going on with them, collaborating with them in various probably cross-functional uh, projects, etc., helps us a better edge to these individuals to be able to take a role in different strategic initiatives, and that will help them to to be a part of the strategic leadership team.
I have seen people moving from one industry to other. What exactly you see in a candidate when you come across such a person during an interview? According to you, how should the candidate justify the move?
See, the good part about finance professionals is they're industry agnostic. In the end, the business only runs on finance, right? Only runs on profitability. Uh, so as long as I said, apart from the right attitude, the ability to understand, the finance, the numbers or the business drivers is extremely important. I really don't care about which industry a person comes from, as long as that individual can portray or can help understand or understands the businesses very well. It will be a lag time. So, for example, when I moved from manufacturing to services almost 22 years ago, one of the biggest, and this was in IT services. When you are in manufacturing, you're used to the very fact that your revenue is more or less predictable across the organization, across the throughout the year, right? And and when I joined an IT services company, I saw a revenue of X dollars in the first month. And the next month, I suddenly saw a dip, and I couldn't understand what was this happening, right? And then I realized, oh, the business drivers is the number of working days in this business. The lesser the number of working days, the less I will be able to bill to the customer, and therefore my revenue has to bound to go down. So, but these are the learning curves of any industry, right? But as long as I understood where the business was coming from, where the revenue is coming from, where is my cost line and where is my bottom line, it really doesn't make a difference from which industry you're coming from. In fact, if you look at people of our generation who moved into the IT industry or to any services industry, all of us have probably an experience and a background in the manufacturing sector, and we moved from the manufacturing sector to the services sector. So it really doesn't make a big deal, and that's, I think, the greatest advantage uh, for finance professionals.
Is it possible to move towards finance leadership uh, position or someone who's from an IT background, someone like a CA who has spent most of the time on implementing ERPs? What will be the expectation here from such candidates?
Uh, the expectation from such a candidate would be that whether that person, uh, you know, is really only has that individual just remain a technocrat in that form or the other, or that person understands a little of business and a little of finances as well. If somebody has totally been totally out of touch with finance, it will be that much harder for that individual to go back to the finance area. It's not that impossible, but A lot of risks would be there for both for the individual and for the organization, but it is not an impossible task to do it. But again, as I said, be able to understand the business drivers, have the right attitude, to be able to question, the ability to question will be some of the very important aspects from such movements. Or with, this happens with any lateral movement, right? As I said, somebody asked a question, how does one move from finance to the other organization? So as long as your 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 ability to think and and ask the right questions is there, I don't think movement from one function, one area to the other area is very different or very difficult.
I
And
think
I know a lot of finance professionals who have been to market, moved to marketing, and have done a fabulous job in marketing. So, it's just that you get an opportunity, you take that opportunity. There's a risk from your perspective, the risk from an organization perspective as well. But as long as we are able to, show the right attitude and be able to understand the drivers, I don't think it's going to be a very difficult job.
I think that's a fantastic answer. I can relate with Infosys, where Mr. Mohandas Pai was questioning Narayan Murthy in an AGM and he was brought into the finance team. So I think the questioning ability is one of the most important aspect, and that's where I sought to give an example here so that they can relate why asking questions is such an important aspect even when you're in the interview. I think that is something would show up how is your business knowledge of that company. Sameer, have one question. Does candidates having experience in family business looking to switch to enter into corporate stand a chance to start off as freshers in a corporate sector?
Yeah, why not? Absolutely. I find no reason why we should not do it. I've had in the past so many people who have been in family businesses and have joined the organization, so which is quite okay. Absolutely. In fact, to me, if there's an entrepreneur and and the person has done the right things, success or failure of an enterprise doesn't make a difference at all. In fact, sometimes people who failed in as an entrepreneur or not been that successful, yeah, for various reasons, their experience is extremely important because they would understand what takes a business from 0 to X and what are the errors which they have made in that business which led them to a fall. That experience, very few professionals have. So that experience can really be extremely important to a business.
That kinds of gives Samir his interview answer also when he'll go into the interviews. So, Keshav, I have a question: how to be more collaborative and discuss with colleagues from different departments about different processes?
Yeah, I mean, see, one of the best ways of doing being collaborative, say for example, if you're doing something in the finance area and you need a lot of support from, say, the production guy or a marketing guy, the best is to reach out to those individuals and then try and understand what's going on in that area. And 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 a helping attitude makes a lot of difference, right? So, for example, sometimes you may even come up with a finance problem, and you may want to go and reach out to somebody who's not from a finance area altogether. But that individual may be able to give you a very good response to that. So, to be able to reach out to people, to be really willing to help, to willing to work with people of different functions, is extremely an important skill which we all need to develop. Uh, and It takes a time because finance professionals, typically we want to move around within our circles, but it's important to unshackle that, move away from our boundaries, and talk to, to the various people, reach out to the people of different functions in different areas, and understand what's going on. Because in the end, remember, we are the end of the thing. The businesses really, or the revenue, the marketing, or the sales really happen at that front end, right? The hiring is really done by the HR people. The production is really happens at the shop floor. Therefore, to be able to understand their challenges and their importance is extremely important for us even to do our work. So, therefore, to be able to reach out uh, to them, build a relationship with them is very, very important, I think.
Any books which you recommend to learn more about different business drivers and business processes?
I don't know about books and all that. To me, I'm not a great fan of books. I think to be reaching out to what you learn from people is extremely important. And there are tons of books of successful entrepreneurs, of the businessmen, or even the management experts, which you can always read out. But learning from the real people, reaching out to them, speaking to them, I think is the best way to learn in my view.
Can we say in a data driven world, finance professionals are becoming more dynamic than any other profession?
Well, being a finance professional, I would certainly say that, but not really. I think the other businesses are extremely becoming dynamic as well. So I won't take the say that the finance professionals are are more dynamic than the others. I think the data-driven the businesses are forcing everybody to become more dynamic. It's forcing everybody to think in a unique manner, in a very different manner. So I think as finance professionals, probably we understand our data a bit better compared to the others, but I think equally the functions are becoming as dynamic.
So, in this pandemic, what are the key points or actions taken from financials improvement point of view in Wells Fargo?
So, well, I won't talk about Wells Fargo, but I'll give you, typical, what I think has happened is, as I said, I think in in talk when I really spoke about that when I went, when March happened and April came in and I was talking to my team about the audit, I frankly didn't have the confidence in myself, let me put it this way, and I won't talk about the teams, that we would be able to get past and prepare the financial statements, uh, you know, totally remotely. We would be able to get our audit done absolutely remote in a remote manner. I wasn't even sure whether the auditors uh, you know, were were that ready yet. But the end after 3 months, when I look at July, when I look at June and July, when our audit was completed, actually there was absolutely a seamless audit transition to an online sort of audit methods, and even to the preparations of the financial statements and so on. And and I think that is, to me, what it did tell us that, or it tell me and help me understand, is when we are our backs to the wall, we'll come out with mechanisms, we'll come out with options where we can deliver the best, we can be at the best, right? We used automation to the hilt. We used scanning of the data, etc., whatever it may be, uh, you know, to be able to satisfy the auditors. And if I look back, I think it is with great pride and satisfaction to the team that we were able to do that. So I think those are some of the things which have taught that whatever the challenges may be, we are so resilient to such changes that we will always find a way of getting around it and performing to the best.
So I think we already surpassed the time. It was till 12, and I think Rakesh have gone more than that. I hope Rakesh doesn't complain on that. So one last question, sir. Can you please share your thoughts on automation in the finance accounting, and audit field?
So I'm not an auditor, so I will not be able to tell you about from an audit perspective. But to me, when you look at an automation of the process, there are low hanging fruits like your passing of journal entries and so on and all those sorts of stuff, right? But look at, to me, and I think I probably alluded to during my talk, is look at specifically for people who are where the organizations work on different processes or different systems, or where you think the processes are not that well laid out or is slightly broken down. Look at those examples of how you can automate those sort of things, because I think that is the most important thing. Getting data from a single system, yeah, it will help you, but it will probably not help you that significantly. But where you're putting things together through different systems, and and analyzing or whatever it is, those are the areas or prime areas for automation, and think from those perspective, because I think that is going to be important part in my view.
I think that was a absolutely amazing session, sir. It has been 11 to 12, and there was a 10-minute exceeding time from our end. And thank you so much for giving your time. And thank you so much to panelists and all the attendees, including Zaki, who have organized this on the YouTube and everywhere. We had a lot of comments on that also. And I've taken up, I hope I've taken up all the questions and I've not missed any of the participants' questions also there. Thank you so much for attending this. And once again, thank you so much, Rakesh, sir, for coming on a Sunday. And that also, considering that you had so many family emergencies also, and since still you have taken out time for the students and to Simandhar, it means a lot to us. And thank you so much, sir, again, once again, for one of the amazing sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, participants. Thanks a lot.